out more due to the pandemic? I find that such an ironic question, as sometimes going out just spreads it even more. But I guess that it may help you to be more drawn to the environment around you, and with that realization, why not take action to help save it? Climate change is a major problem we're dealing with in the 21st century, and we only have a couple of years to stop it. This whole pandemic taught us how major events can happen due to one person. These events can either be good ones or tragic ones, such as this pandemic. This epidemic can also be seen as an opportunity to thrive in the turmoil, but this decision, of course, is up to you.
Pfizer results, coronavirus vaccine is safe and 95% effective. Early data shows Moderna's coronavirus vaccine is 94.5% effective. Pfizer's early data shows vaccine is more than 90% effective. These are all different headlines about the COVID-19 vaccine that shows us promise. I think we can all come together on the premise that living your day-to-day life in the pandemic is really life-changing. Many things have changed since the beginning, some for the better and others for the worse. So far, it's been nearly 10 months since the official lockdown, and in the first few months, people were sheltering themselves from the outside world, barely even going out to get groceries. Now you see people going about freely and with an all-new sense of life that both shows how they overcame that fear and how they learned to cope with it. That shift in beliefs boils down to one thing, which is reinvention. Reinvention is basically taking an old idea and reintroducing it as something new. You could use it to start new habits or end old ones. Sometimes it requires an all-new experience to realize what it means to you specifically, and other times it just takes persistence and time. Everyone's experience is different, thus I can't say that it will always be a moment of realization. I think mine was a mixture of both, where it took me things I seem to overlook and things that make a great and funny story to tell to really change my life. Scientists around the world have finally come up with a vaccine, and many countries, Kuwait included, have started vaccinations. 2020 has finally come to an end, and we have now started a new year, which hopefully will be much better. This doesn't mean that the pandemic is over, but rather shows the beginning of the end. You still have to stay cautious and wear a mask to protect yourself and those around you. This pandemic has taught us many things, including hygiene, care, and the importance of personal space. You may have realized how accustomed you now are to your daily corona tasks, such as trying not to go outside too much, school at home, wearing your mask, social distancing, and trying not to have big gatherings, which many of us have been breaking. Things like leaving out the door and double checking that you have your car keys and phone has become leaving the door and making sure you have some sanitizer and a mask. Regularly, I would wake up and stay on my phone a bit, and it would just be a thing, nothing of relevance or importance. But if the pandemic has taught me anything, it is that I should use this time for the better, as these world-changing events are unseen and random. I decided to make the best of it by making the most of my day. And now waking up and going on my phone means to talk to my friends and to stay strong even on our hardest days. This realization, for example, came suddenly and without warning in a cloudy morning mid-May. I stayed sure to be extra kind that day. Those little moments are what helped make new old ideas new and fun. Another thing that I started to do was watch some documentaries and educational shows while binging. I decided on binging TV shows like Full House and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which isn't a bad thing but wasn't really educational in itself. I came to a decision and decided to watch a TV show that was recommended to me via Netflix, which was called Brainchild. They had all sorts of different episodes where they talked about different things such as dreams, germs, space, and the giant oceans. I learned new things about all sorts of stuff, and it was actually entertaining. I also decided to watch documentaries such as After Maria and Out of Many One. These helped to open my eyes on the global situations around me and were also kind of short, so were just enough to keep me entertained. The best thing about reinvention is that you can use it for good and self-improvement. You could also use it to help change the world for the better. This can be something as small as waking up and drinking some water from a reusable bottle or a glass cup instead of a plastic bottle, and this is a tiny yet great little part of my morning. An additional enjoyable example to showcase this is how, when it was still fairly into the pandemic, I decided to read up on climate change. Me being the person I am was already very passionate about this cause and wanted to help, but I never knew how to. I learned that the best way to start is by educating myself more on this topic before deciding to do anything. I then saw multiple videos on it and read Greta Thunberg's book on climate change, as well as completed additional research on my own. That is when I realized that I as a person should do more to help save our planet. It amazed me how this 17-year-old activist managed to do so much to help the world at such a young age. I decided to start off easy by trying to figure out ways to lessen the waste our house produces, and I also decided I wanted to grow my hobby of planting and gardening. I grew some vegetables we eat at home, such as tomatoes and kale, as well as some other delights such as mint and ginger. Recycling water bottles alone wasn't enough, as it contributes a lot to plastic waste in our country. So I found an old filter we used and tried to drink from it as much as I could instead of the regular plastic bottles. I slowly started avoiding the non-reusable bottles altogether and used reusable bottles to refill it with the filtered water. My family liked how I was trying to lessen plastic, and so they tried to avoid it themselves by cutting off plastic and doing tiny things like getting reusable masks instead of the non-reusable surgical masks. I also went as far as taking online classes that teach you how to start a sustainable business that can help you develop a better society, and some other classes that help you to become more ethical. Of course, these were all things I used to do even before the pandemic, yet having all this time to myself, I tried to focus on the tiny things that I may have completed every single day and reinvent them in a way that can better our world. As you can tell, there are many ways to go with this and not just one. I think the most important and easiest way you can help save our planet right now is to wear a mask. While you're making sure that you leave your house with all the important necessities, make sure that you have your mask and actually wear it. This way, you are not only protecting yourself, but those around you, and through the butterfly effect, maybe even the world. Most importantly is to wear your mask properly and cover your nose as well as your mouth. Preferably, the mask should be reusable as to help stop the pollution as well as lessen waste you make in a day. Factually speaking, most pollution is one of the biggest environmental impacts of COVID. Statistically speaking, about 75% of masks and other pandemic-related waste will be left in landfills and oceans. These not only make it harder for marine life to navigate and hunt, but can also release toxins that harm the ocean itself. The World Health Organization estimated about 89 million additional disposable masks were needed globally per month. The most environmentally friendly way to deal with a mask is to get a reusable mask with no filter and use a machine to wash it rather than hand washing. If you do have to use a disposable mask, you should discard it in a bin at home safely or in a public bin. Contrary to popular belief, you should not recycle it, as it can damage the equipment recycling companies use, as well as become a biohazard for the workers there. So I cannot say that every day was productive, as half of the time all I wanted to do was stay in the comfort of my bed doing nothing. I learned to slowly accept myself and even filled my 10-year dream of seeing a shooting star when I saw the Perseid meteor shower. From then on, I kept track of all the meteor showers happening and even got to see a giant asteroid burning before my eyes when I went to see the Geminids meteor shower. I think what helped me the most was trying to read up on what was happening about the world, even if it was only for a few minutes a day. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we still have time. It will take a while before the majority of the population is vaccinated, and even a bit longer for the children like us to get vaccinated. This time can be a bit lonesome and daunting, but you can use it as an opportunity to better yourself and the world around you. If there has been anything that you have wanted to do since whenever, now's your time.
You can either be patient zero and cause trouble, or you can be activist zero and help save the world.
There is no time like the present, and to conclude, do your research, fulfill those dreams, and think to yourself, what is one thing I can reinvent to make the world a bit better?